The first priority of my government is keep Australians safe, and to do that we need a bigger ADF with more soldiers, sailors and airmen and women to operate the cutting-edge capabilities we're getting to protect Australia, Mr. Morrison said. Our world is becoming increasingly uncertain, so it's important we take steps now to protect our people and our national interest over the coming decades. You can't flick a switch to increase your Army, Navy and Air Force overnight. Growing the type of people and SS we need to face the threats of the future takes time. So we must start now so critical SS can be taught and experience gained. ADF personnel will be increased in every state and territory, with a particular focus on capabilities associated with our trilateral security partnership between Australia, United Kingdom, and United States, as well as air, sea, land, space and cyber. Defence Minister Peter Dutton said the increase would build a credible military force. It will also build the resilience we need in critical areas and enable our people to increase intelligence, information, and communications capacity, he said. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg told the Australian Financial Review Platinum 70 dinner on Thursday night that the budget on March 29 would contain further commitments to boost defence spending, which will hit 2.1% of gross domestic product. The more dangerous and unpredictable strategic environment we now face will require from liberal democracies sustained and substantial increase in defence spending. It is a trajectory Australia is already on, he said. Signals Directorate boost. As an interim step, the ADF will gain about 800 personnel between now and 2024, while the public service will increase by 250. The secretive Australian Signals Directorate, which plays a key role in cyber warfare, will also gain extra personnel. The increase in uniformed servicemen and women was flagged in the 2020 Defence Force Structure Plan, with the department spending last year determining how it could be achieved, given the challenges in the past to recruit and retain personnel. Defence advised Cabinet's National Security Committee that 12,500 was the minimum increase required to meet its current workforce plan, but a further 6,000 on top of that was recommended to provide a buffer, as well as beginning to meet the demands for more submariners that the switch to nuclear submarines will entail. The National Security Committee approved the increase in November. Of the 12,500 new personnel, about 2,700 will go to the NSW and ACT respectively. Queensland will receive almost 1,900 extra personnel, Western Australia 1,400, and South Australia, and the Northern Territory about 1,000. The Australian Defence Force's current number of permanent uniformed regulars stands at about 60,000 people. The Army makes up half of that, while the Navy and Air Force have about 15,000 personnel each. About 9 to 10% of personnel leave the military each year, replaced by new recruits. The difficulty of attracting and keeping personnel has been highlighted by the dry docking of the Anzac frigate HMAS Perth for the past several years, because the Navy lacked sailors to crew the warship. The demand for additional Navy crews will only intensify in coming years as platforms get bigger and more sophisticated, while the size of the fleet will increase. A Collins-class submarine has a crew of 48 officers and sailors, plus trainees. But the British Astute-class nuclear-powered submarines have a crew of 98, while the US Virginia-class is even larger, at 132. The Army plans to establish regiments for long-range fires and mobile fires, while a decision is slated to be made in the next 18 months, or so on whether the Air Force will get an additional squadron of 24 Joint Strike Fighters. The 21st century warfighting domains of cyber and space are also soaking up additional personnel. The ADF numbered about 86,000 people before conscription ended in 1972 and fell to about 70,000 by the end of the Cold War in the early 1990s. As part of the so-called peace dividend, the ADF was reduced even further to about 51,000 by the early 2000s, when John Howard began to increase the military following Australia's involvement in East Timor, Afghanistan and Iraq. In recent years, Mr. Morrison has tapped the military to play an increasing role in civilian missions, including assisting with natural disaster recovery efforts and the COVID-19 response.